Almost every review of Crimson Desert starts with some kind of comparisons to the Zelda games, Red Dead Redemption, and sometimes even The Witcher 3. As strange as it may sound, for me the game feels closest to Baldur's Gate 3. True, not because of its perfect story obviously, or incredibly developed narrative. If you're already thinking that's complete nonsense, please hold up for a moment, because what I will say later might change your mind and make the comparison seems a bit less absurd. The story in Crimson Desert is told in a way typical of the big RPGs and actual adventure games. We get the cutscenes, a hero chosen by the gods, and tons of the in-engine dialogues. Interestingly, to fully understand what's happening on the screen, it's worth diving into item descriptions and books. Something fans of the From Software games know very well. The problem is that it feels like someone took the worst elements from both systems and mixed them together, creating something that looks like a movie chopped into random plot threads for a potential TV series. We play as Cliff, the leader of legendary mercenary company called the Greymanes. Unfortunately, we don't stay in that role for too long, at least not yet, and our company is soon wiped out by a gang called the Blackbears. Our hero ends up with his throat slit at the bottom of the river, so that's the great place to be, especially at the beginning of the game, but shortly after he wakes up in an alternate world called the Abyss, suspended on islands above the main map, and turns out to be the chosen one, responsible for the fate of the world, the entire universe, etc. The prologue is pure torture. This is what I can say at this moment. We get a series of very loosely connected missions, and we can't even tell why our hero decides to do them. One moment he's giving money to a random beggar, the next he's cleaning a chimney for another random guy.
Oh, my back! You've done me a huge favour there. Would you come off it, woman?
Look at him.
Where are you? Come now. She'd have me run ragged if she could.
From the very beginning, Cliff is a mismatch of two leading traits, courage and altruism, making him the most cliché and bland character of the entire continent of pirates.
Blazes, you're as strong as you look.
I just did my best. You should be proud of your own strength.
However, if you read the books, which is optional, it turns out that he has to be this way because it's intentionally crafted by the Guardians. Interestingly, these loosely connected elements and the shallow, uninspired story actually become quite interesting once you read the books available in the Abyss at the end of the story. I will probably make a separate spoiler video about this because it's much more interesting than the stuff that we get in the cutscenes. It feels like the developers, knowing that they had a weak plot, wrote the books afterwards to explain the bizarre narrative decisions and lack of coherence. That said, a narrative improving patch has been announced, so if they will take the information from the books and weave it into the main story, they may manage to get rid of this feeling or save the entire story. The whole thing lasts around 80 to 100 hours in total, depending on your playstyle, and sends you on the journey across the entire continent of Pyrewell, but it's not really even. We reach the titular Crimson Desert practically at the very end, and the main story touches it a bit and leave the rest into the side quest. So for most players, the Kingdom of Hernand will be much more recognizable. After the Nightmare prologue, the game fortunately opens up, something nicely reflected in the Metacritic score. You can see it right here. The game launched with a 6 and after a few weeks climbed to an 8.8 with an upward trend. Interestingly, similar to GTA 5, we can play as two other characters, an orc named Onka and the young warrior Damien. However, their role in the story is marginal and they feel somewhat forced in, even though from the gameplay perspective they are really well made. Each has their own animation, unique combat styles, weapons and powerful talent trees. Some side quests were even recorded and prepared so that the dialogues fit all three characters, which is a bit weird, to be speaking lightly, giving a feeling similar to an MMO rather than a big RPG game. When For every character you're simply a Greymane, even though Damien never actually joined the Cleaves group. The real magic of Crimson Desert isn't in the story, but it's in the mechanics, which constantly present something new and fresh even after hundreds of hours. This is where the comparison to Baldur's Gate 3 feels the strongest. Crimson Desert shows such an absurd amount of mechanics and attention to detail that the producers of other games have started saying that it shouldn't be treated as any kind of standard from now on. One of the Baldur's Gate producers even called the game a cynical creation that borrows mechanics from other single-player titles. We saw similar comments when Larian itself braved the way of shoving unexpected scale and ambition in Baldur's Gate 3 story options. However, Crimson Desert doesn't feel like some cynical industry attempt, at least to me. It feels like a very ambitious project from a passionate people who wanted to fit into their game every element they ever liked. So sometimes it feels a bit weird. Could the game survive without most of these elements? Yeah, it will still be good game, but their presence shows an almost unbelievable level of ambition from a studio, which, as you may see, is totally inexperienced in single-player games. They only did Black Desert Online, which is an MMO. We have an incredibly deep combat system here. The developers give us access to attacks performed with several types of weapons, weak and strong versions, dodges, short and long, jumping over enemies, thrust, sweeps, throws, wrestling grabs, archery, firearms, abyss powers, charge element attacks, and 3 playable characters, with their own animation and varied skill trees. And, remarkably, all of this system actually work. Want to play as a kickboxer using only punches and kicks? Go ahead, you can manage. Add some grappling and you'll feel like a UFC fighter. The game supports that path too. Of course, classic melee and range combat are also perfectly viable and balanced, so yeah, there is not bad choices here. Additionally, in the game world, we can compete in the arenas tied to specific martial arts. They are kickboxing tournaments, grappling competitions, spear fights, archery contests, and much more. They are not overly complex, it's not like the new UFC game or a Tekken, but if you want to roleplay as a John Cena, it's very possible here. Later, technology enters the game with a visit to Delesia, the only region in Paywall that uses electricity. We get our hands on various blueprints for powerful spears, launchers, and even a combat suit. And this happens right when we think we've seen everything. Somewhat disappointing, though, is the number of enemy types we'll face. While every now and then, especially in the new regions, we encounter something fresh and new, most of the time we're fighting waves of similar human enemies, flooding us in with hordes of hundreds, just like the Dynasty Warriors games. If you're not the fan of it, you may be clearly disappointed with that. Clearing outposts eventually becomes tedious because the combat system gets reduced to spamming area attacks with the most efficiency. On the positive side, there are over 70 boss fights in the game. Sure, some of them are recycled, but no more often than the From Software ones. The bosses are basically the only moments when we feel any real difficulty within the game, which might throw some players off. The jump in difficulty between regular enemies, even elite ones, and proper bosses is huge, not to mention completely optional super hard adversaries. It's not as hard as the Souls games, don't worry about that, and most tougher enemies rely on teleportation-based movesets, but they provide a nice challenge from time to time and nice change of pace from the core gameplay. With subsequent patches, the developers significantly nerfed the elite enemies from the main story, which is a bit sad, so on normal difficulty, an average player can handle them without needing to watch YouTube tutorials. Combat is helped by the fact that on easy and normal, our character can eat soups, pork, chops, fishes and all kind of dishes from really solid cooking system without any cooldown or animation. Similarly to The Witcher 3. Only on hard mode, added quite recently, these eating animations appear, and if you want to calmly eat a bowl of soup during the fight, you have to hide behind a tree or something. If things are going really badly or you want to quickly push through the boss, the game also provides a special healing items that we can use basically without limits. So after you die you can go back with 1/3 of the health or the full health bar, dependently on the item used. This item can also be crafted so the strongest adversaries can simply be worn down by eating. The cooking system somewhat resembles Zelda Breath of the Wild with a few important differences. We cook items in bulk using recipes, but there is also an improvisation option. Within the existing recipes we can modify types of meat, vegetables, or adjectives, and portions can be increased by using more ingredients. So even basic recipes remain useful in the later stages of the story, which is great. Alchemy lets you create several types of elixirs, but it's not really important in the game, as well as special weapon upgrades, which are crucial because they add special effects. And this is where it gets really interesting. Besides regular stat boost, we get special attacks, new animations and effects. Weapons can also be upgraded at blacksmith in a more classic way, so the damage, etc. And recently, the runs and resources invested in the weapon upgrades can be efficiently recovered, making equipment swapping natural and removing the hesitation about wherever is worth investing in something later on or just stick with the old stuff. Cliff and the others can obtain resources in several ways. They are divided into important categories: crafting materials, cooking, and leather armor upgrades come from hunting. Metal items require specific ores, jewelry mostly needs bones and gemstones. Interestingly, to upgrade equipment above a certain level we also need abyss artifacts, which also serve as skill points. We can obtain artifacts in various ways by completing quests, defeating bosses, or solving Zelda-like puzzles in the templates. We'll get the most of them by exploring the abyss. Above our normal game world, we explore the specific platforming paths leading to powerful rewards such as new elementals for charging weapons. An important element of the game is also the camp at Howling Hill, where we recruit Greymanes to help us with special tasks scattered across the world. Practically every location has associated gathering, construction, trading, and other missions. As we develop our camp and recruit new companions, we get a fairly deep management system, involving thousands of goods that we can later trade at specific trading posts. The game even has its own wagon for the traveling the roads with supplies, and if you lose them, well, the work of the entire camp goes to waste, basically. My strongest memory from Crimson Desert is slowly making my way with the wagon toward the title of desert across the wilderness, defending the cargo from bandits and riding on the lizards. At a certain point we've also get the chance to rebuild the Greymane's home-held payloon, which requires an enormous amount of gold, stone, wood, food and weapons generated by the camp. Interestingly, if we spend people on a mission and travel to the agreed location, our companions will actually be there, standing guard or chopping wood. There are tons of assignments and each Greymane has appropriate skills. A lumberjack cuts trees better, while an engineer is essential for building a bridge or some kind of balloon or something. Because, yes, in this game we can ride not only horses and wagons, but also bears, wolves, chickens, dinosaurs, and much more. We can even use balloons, dragons, and recently wyverns too. The cooldown on flying mounts sometimes feels a bit long, and landing with a balloon without smashing it into pieces is tricky, and I believe it's impossible, but flying with all of them is genuinely enjoyable. Some can even be upgraded at research centers scattered around the world, which for the right price improve the performance of elixirs or vehicles. Many of these upgrades are really expensive, and some are necessary to maximize the main attributes of the three heroes. So, where do we get the money for all of this? We have the complete freedom. We can steal, trade, catch fugitives with bounties on their heads, but what I liked the most was the fact that we can actually plunder huge treasures full of physical lying, slightly damaged gold bars. In most games, finding such a place would give you maybe a chest or a few coins. Here you can take everything that isn't nailed down. This is excellent. We can craft and invest gold bars in banks, steal wagons, race, play the local equipment of poker. And if we really don't feel like doing anything, there is most absurd yet profitable method: hunting a creature that drops golden apples from his back. Yeah, it's actually a small hedgehog, so yeah, but you didn't hear it from me. Character customization is also expanded to an incredible level. We craft dice from insects and plants, which we can then use to change the colors of the weapons and clothing. A game also features a heat and a cool system, similar to the Zelda games, so sometimes we have to dress stupidly just to avoid debuffs or direct health loss. Fortunately, some of it can be also handled with food. The world of Pywell is enormous and consists of several smaller regions. At the beginning, we arrive at Hernand, a mountainous location somewhat reminiscent of Switzerland. A great decision in world design was the incredibly long draw distance, which already at the start can overwhelm us, with the sheer size of the world that we are seeing on the screen. Later we can visit mountainous Pyloon, vineyard-covered Demenis, and many other locations whose specifics I would rather not spoil, so as it's not fun to ruin what is best in Crimson Desert: the passion of discovery. Not the story of characters, but new locations, new mechanics, over 400 animals, yeah, some can be tamed and taught various tricks, new bosses, equipment, and so on. Does Pearl Abyss work have a chance at Game of the Year this year? No, I don't think so. And not just because of the GTA 6 looming on the horizon. It's an enormous game, full of ambition, but also full of shallow elements. However, if the developers dig in and deliver on the story side, the next installment could be an outstanding game and potential game of the year. They certainly have the budget, so despite the weak start, the game sold excellently. The patches and the free content are coming out so quickly that if the Pearl Abyss doesn't get an award for post-launch support at the next TGA, I will be in serious shock. And that's what Crimson Desert looks like. For me it looks like the start of something very special. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what do you think about the Crimson Desert and the entire of the Pearl Abyss story, and see you in the next video.